What the hell is going on, everybody? Man Cave Sports back here with another edition of Hungry Like the Wolves. Minnesota Timberwolves coming off of two, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, horrendous losses. One to the G League Pacers on Monday night, and mind you, following a 9 game winning streak, playing some of their best basketball of the year, getting all their players back from injury, but a loss to the G League Pacers, which quite frankly, I can excuse because Obi Toppin channeled his 1990s inner Reggie Miller and hit one of the most ridiculous shots I've ever seen in a live NBA game, 7 to 10 from downtown, I believe. But I can excuse that, especially because the Warriors lost the same night to a downtrodden, injured Nuggets team. However, if you watch last night's game, it was very disturbing. The Timberwolves have one of the easier schedules to finish the season. Great position to make sure they avoid the play-in, and now they sit in the 8th seed as we sit here today on March 20th with, I believe, 11 games left, somewhere around there, maybe 12. Nonetheless, on this 5 game homestand, to lose to the Pelicans, minus Trey Murphy.
Wait, it's the Pelicans. The Pelicans.
Yes, yes,
They
yes.
can't.
One of the worst teams in the NBA. Inexcusable. But I'm going to start this conversation out with one of my own personal rants. I love Anthony Edwards. My second favorite Timberwolf of all time, probably will end up being my favorite. He's very close to surpassing KG in my book as my favorite NBA player of all time. Obviously, Jordan's the GOAT. For any of you LeBron people, no. But anyways, love Anthony Edwards. 23 years old, has done great things in his 5 seasons here. However, last night was a microcosm of an issue that I've really noticed this year, but it's been a problem his entire career. Anthony Edwards does not hit clutch shots up to this point in his career. And in fact, he's pretty bad at it. I think the statistic was like 2 of 19 in game tying or game winning shots about a month ago. It's probably more like 2 for 22, 23 now after some of the close games we've seen recently. So I love Ant. I love that he has no fear. He's not scared to take the winning shots. However, they're just not falling. And that is the reason why this team is sitting in the 8th seed. If the season ended today, they would have to go to LA of all places, the house that Kawhi got injured in, and play the Clippers in a play-in game. Nonetheless, anyways, my rant is almost over, but Anthony Edwards, what is going on with his clutch shots? And Ramon, I know you've watched him for the last 5 years. You're a big fan like myself. What is going on with Ant, and why? I mean, he had, I'll tell you what, I'll never forget the shot he made against the Grizzlies to tie the game, only to subsequently give up a lay-in to Ja. He was game 3, whichever. But Ramon, Razor, help me out, bro.
I mean, I think one thing we have to keep in mind is, like, for example, Kobe Bryant looked at as one of the great clutch players in the history of the game, but I think statistically, he missed a lot of game-winning shots. So it's not uncommon for, these big time wing players to be willing to take the big shots, but then actually have quite low efficiency in the big moments. I don't have a stat to back me up on that, but I remember reading that somewhere. I think the thing with Ant is that he he just seems to kind of go for like the jugular shot. They'll be down 2, or they'll shoot a 3, a step back, dribble to his left, take a step back 3. And it was like, why didn't you try to go to the basket and hopefully maybe get a 2, or get to the basket, and if the defense collapses, kick out to a teammate and then live with it. I mean, that's the great creators in this league, when they really take that next step, is when they start to trust their teammates and then have the right teammates that can hit those shots. And Ant, it looks like sometimes he does trust his teammates, and other times he doesn't trust his teammates. But I'm gonna kind of switch gears a little bit on you, Mike, just real quick before we switch it over to Mr. Steve or B Naughty. The thing that I'm more concerned about with Anthony Edwards is just this kind of showing up with very, very low energy when they're not playing a fully stacked team, or it's a weak team, a team that's struggling, as you called it. The Indiana Pacers, excuse me, were a G League version of themselves. But that said, they still have very capable NBA players and extremely talented players that if they start out early and start out well, they're just going to keep hitting shots. And I thought I was at the game, and I thought the Wolves came out with very, very little energy in the first half. And clearly Finch lit into them, or they lit into themselves, because they came out guns blazing in the third quarter, came back, looked like they were going to take the game over, and then they couldn't hit clutch shots down the stretch to really ice it. But I thankfully didn't watch the game last night, but that's kind of what I heard, that the effort level was light early in the game. And then I've been a big Finchy apologist, and I've also been an apologist of the 8.5 man rotation. But I
Seven
think
and
we
a half.
talked about it last week. But why is it that Finch doesn't, when he sees that his guys, if he's seen a quarter of low effort from his guys, why don't you mix in the high energy young guys? Hasn't done that in quite a while now that he's had full strength, full roster. So those are I'm more concerned not as much about the clutch shots. I'm more concerned about the lack of energy that has been an issue for several years now. When they have an injury depleted opponent, or they're playing a lesser opponent, they don't look like they're really up for the game, and they think they'll just figure it out later on, and they'll handle it. And that's just a terrible attitude to have.
That's a perfect
Who
segue
should I
to
turn it over to next?
Yeah, that's a perfect segue to Mr. Steve, because he's had this conversation many times in text with this group here, and even on the Twitter/X, about Finch's rotation, bringing in these guys with the energy, and we haven't seen it lately. It seems like this winning streak, getting everybody healthy is a great thing, but outside of Jalen Clark, you can't find Rob Dillingham or TSJ with a searchlight right now with Finch's rotation. So, Steve, I know you have strong feelings about this. Let's hear them. Let it out. This is your safe space.
This is my padded area. Yeah, I'm not going to mince words with BS. I mean, this is what is going to limit this team from growing and getting any better. Like Ramon said, this team is notorious for coming out and think they can sleepwalk and just, like they're playing the JV guys whenever somebody comes up. Hey, those are NBA players too, right? They show up. They're out there trying to make a living for themselves, and they're playing with no pressure because nobody expects them to win, right? Like we don't have Halliburton, we don't have Siakam, we don't have the other guys. Yeah, we're not supposed to win, so let's just go nuts and see what we can do. And our team is just, thinks they're like the varsity taking on the 10th grade or something like that, that they can just, jerk around for 3 quarters and then just turn it on at the end. Well, we're not good enough to do that. Finch has decided that just because Sticky Fingers came back, that suddenly we don't need to go to our bench anymore. It's like, I'm sorry, Sticky Fingers, Mr. -20 last night, -6 the night before, fumbling, bumbling, rumbling, stumbling in the lane. The other night, we're all like, wow, this is a great, look at this version of Julius Randle, and he's slamming into people, and he's being physical, and he ain't afraid of nobody. Great. And then he reverts back to who he's always been this season, which is Mr. Dribble off my foot. I get in the lane. It gets completely disjointed offense. If I'm the coach, if I'm Finch, I'm going to look at this shit, and then 6 minutes in, you guys are lazy as hell. Get out. I'm going to pull them out. I would even send a bigger message and be like, oh, you want to go -20? Guess what? You're sitting. Nas and TSJ, you guys are in, or something like that. Send a message. If you're going to be sitting there you're going to jackass around and be like that, fine. Great. I'm paying you either way. Go sit down. You're going to cost me my job. If Finch wants to actually get this team to the next level, not just see the Western Conference, but actually make the finals, then he's got to pull his finger out of his ass and use it to like flip on the iPad and see, oh, who else do I have on my bench? Because right now you've got a hell of a lot of talent there that you could be mixing in. Give them 3 minutes, give them 4 minutes. Who cares if they get into foul trouble? They're the kids, right? Let them go off. Let them go beat somebody up and get them frustrated. How did we beat OKC? How did we beat them? It wasn't with Sticky Fingers, and it wasn't with DiVincenzo because they were hurt. They weren't even here. We were throwing Dillingham, TSJ, Clark. Even Minot got in the game. We were running up and down the court. We ran those little bastards out of there. SGA got tired. He couldn't keep up at the end. OKC was dead. It was the same thing that we did to Denver last year. And now this year, what are we doing? Oh, I got 7.5 guys who like to hold the ball for 8 seconds and then dribble it off their foot. And then we got to figure out how to jack up a shot from the corner. Are you kidding me? Finch, get off of it, right? You've got talent. You're wasting it. You are wasting it. If you're not going to play them, if you're just going to let them sit there, send them back to the G League or something. Let them get some experience. I mean, Dillingham and TSJ, when they're out there, they do 2 things. They either screw up the defense or they score you about 20 points. One of the two. Throw them out there for spurts. Let them run around. They steal both of those games. You steal 2-3 baskets in the course of the game, 2 or 3, which TSJ and Dilly's going to get you. They're going to get you 6 to 10 points. Throw them out there, let them go. And if they suck, then give them the yank. That's fine. You do it anyways. What's the big deal? What's it going to hurt? When Ant is being as inefficient as he is and just jacking up shots left, right, and all over the place, great, you got 30 points. Nobody cares. We lost. That's like, great, Jokic got 40 the other, or what was it? Banchero for Magic. He got 40 on us the other night. Don't care. You lost. It doesn't matter. So Finch needs to get his head out of his ass, get these younger guys in there, use them to push the big dogs, and get some runs. I'm out. I can't. If I go any longer, I'm going to have like a coronary. There's going to be EMS.
Yeah, we're going to have to call 911, man. Be naughty. I'm not even going to ask you a question. Everybody's very thorough.
Oh, man, I want to piggyback.
Everybody's just letting it out. Let it out. Let out your inner.
I've been waiting for it. I was waiting for. I knew this was going to happen tonight. I didn't know that he was going to delight me so soon. And I knew Mr. Steve was going to go after Jules, and then he's going to be Sticky Fingers, not Mr. Randall anymore. And Vincey, oh yeah, man, bravo. But piggybacking on all that, Razor, the question about Ant, I do get that thing when we brought up the clutch shots, Michael. What was it, 2 for 19? It's that old Kobe. Yeah, it's that old Kobe, Larry Bird. Hey, we ain't playing overtime. We're going home. And, you got to commend that. But my problem with him is this ultra inefficient 3-point shooting. And he'll even like kind of go into the key and go into the lane, break people's ankles and just everything. But then it's a hardened step back 3. And, sometimes they go in and with a swish and it's like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. But there's a lot of those that it's clang, clang, clang. And it's just, it's tough to deal with. As far as Jules goes, I mean, that -20 yesterday was just, of course it was atrocious, but he still looked better than he did like earlier in the year. He still kind of seems comfortable. I'm not going to sound the alarm and rescind my apology to Jules yet, but I don't want to see that anymore. And now jumping on Mr. Steve. Oh God, I love it when you get going. But yeah, that Finchy 7.5, 8.5 man rotation. I mean, what did TSJ get a minute last night? Was it 1 minute? I don't know. My eyes are getting old. I'm like, that is the elder statesman here. It's tough to read the interweb on occasion. And then Jalen Clark, how many minutes did he get last night? 9?
12. He was a plus 12 in 12 minutes.
And Jules was a -20. It was an ugly loss, but hey, you got to give it to Zion. I mean, he looked like a monster last night. I mean, is that Finchy's defense? Is that sometimes that happens? And then in regard, I'm not worried about the Timberwolves. I really am not. We match up great against Golden State, okay, shitty, Houston. Bring them all on. I only hate when we have to play effing Wizards or the Pacers, or it's just guaranteed we're going to play down to their level, and it's frustrating. And I think Mr. Steve got all our frustrations out. Michael.
Yeah, and I feel that sentiment. My concern is now after last night's loss, you're behind the Clippers. You're sitting in the 8th spot, which God forbid that's the worst it gets. I hope you got Sacramento nipping at your heels, because if you're in the 7 or 8, at least you have 2 shots to make the playoffs. And to me, OKC, Denver, LA, it doesn't matter at this juncture. A lot of it's going to be dependent upon health, which fortunately the Timberwolves are healthy right now. You see some of these other teams struggling, but you just want to get in, and you don't want to put yourself in a scenario, whether it's a 7th or 8th seed, to where you might have to play 2 games just to get in. So I don't know. I'd prefer that top 6. If they'd have handled business this week, they'd be sitting on the cusp of getting 5 or 4 right now. They'd be right there. And you got to take advantage of some of these teams struggling. I mean, the Lakers won the other night, but I mean, they're without LeBron for probably another week or 2 here. And Luka's playing well with them, but you have to take advantage of that. And something Steve hit on, and I'll talk to you guys about this a little bit more. You guys hit on it, 7.5, 8.5 man rotation. My biggest concern is Finch, when the players were hurt, the Rudies, the Jules, the Dantes, we were starting to see the rookies, some of the other guys come off the bench and do a fantastic job. Now that everybody's healthy, the rotation has dwindled. Guys that were getting run, the Jalen Clarks, Dillingham, hell, TSJ had a game where I think he had 25. Now he can't get 1 minute on the court in a game where we should be blowing out a much lesser opponent. What are your concerns going into the playoffs with Finch's rotation? And you guys have all made this point. I think the Timberwolves, while they have a deep bench, the traditional playoff 7, 8, 9 man rotation might put them into trouble if they're not able to tire out teams, which is a strength of theirs with the youth, with the play of the Dillinghams of the world who go out there and bust their ass, don't fall asleep. They might miss a defensive assignment, but it's not via effort. So Ramon, I'll give that to you. What are we looking at as we dwindle down these last 3 weeks of the season? Hopefully not in a play-in scenario, but it's looking like after these last 2 games, there's a good possibility of that. What are you thinking about with the rotation going into the playoffs?
I kind of touched on it already that, I had been an apologist and even an advocate for having a short rotation down the stretch, but reading the room. And I don't think Finch is reading the room. When you see those guys aren't energetic, you see them coming out flat, bang, you put in guys like TSJ, you put in guys like Clark. Not only are they high energy players, but they're very mature rookies. I mean, to me, they rarely make dumb plays, and rookies aren't known for making dumb plays. But when they make a mistake, it's a high. Maybe TSJ tries to take on too many defenders going to the basket, but that's a very highly effective play for him in those kind of delayed fast breaks. So I just want to see Finchy read the room. And I mean, I have been also a Julius Randle apologist at times. Mr. Steve, I loved the passion, by the way. Just wanted to throw that in there. But I'm going to back you up on this a little bit too. His rebounding numbers have been atrocious in the last 3 games, and we talked about his plus minus, but I think he had 3 rebounds last night. He had 6 rebounds against Indiana, and then he had 3 rebounds the night before. And granted, he only played 20 minutes, but still, like, that's ridiculous. I mean, do you guys remember Mark Blunt, former Timberwolf that could shoot jumpers but was allergic to rebounding? I mean, when you're a power forward, getting 3 rebounds and you're playing 30 minutes, those are happening by accident. You're not really getting involved. And so that's concerning to me. And when Finch sees that guys are not playing with the energy, he's got to read the room. He's got to start putting in the young guys. Mr. Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to go the way of Finch's rotation. The team is going to be who they're going to be at this point in the season. They're not going to have an epiphany and suddenly change who they are. right? Some nights they come out and they have energy. They're feeding off of ants like, hey, I want to beat KD, or I want to, I want Dylan Brooks. He comes out with that fire in his eyes and everybody feeds off of it. And sometimes Ant comes out and he's just kind of bouncing around a little bit. He doesn't quite have it. So this team is going to go as far as Finch coaches them. And we have plenty of talent. We've got plenty of athleticism. We've got with DiVincenzo and Naz Reid, and now Jaden McDaniels discovered that jump shooting's a thing. He's hitting those in the lane jumpers. His 3-point percentage has gotten better. Whereas last year I'd see him kick it to Jaden. I'm like, oh, who's going to get the board? Like I wasn't even like being a jerk. It was just like automatic. I'm like, okay, who's going to get, is Cat there? Who's going to grab it? Now he's more dependable, right? So we've got better 3-point shooting this year. So I just think that it's, the team culture is the team is who they are. Some nights are going to come out crazy. Some nights they're not. But it's going to be all on the Finch. He's got to get them fired up and working. And if they're not, short hook the veterans. I don't care how much money they're making. What do you care if you take them off? You've got them under contract, or if they're not going to play in the time and in the playoffs, why do you want them on your team anyways? Right? If they're going to be like, oh, I'm worth X amount of dollars and making so many millions. Yeah, but you're a slug and you're not getting it done out here. So what do I care? Great. Why don't you go down to Orlando and see, maybe you and Banchero can jack up 40 points a night and you lose 100 to 80 all the time. Who gives a crap? It doesn't matter. So when you're talking about trying to get them to that next level and win championships, it comes down to the coaching and it comes down to the effort of the players. And if you got a player that's out there and they don't have it, that's all right. Take them out, get somebody else in there. And you just flat out tell them, hey, pick up the pace, or, take a seat and ice them down. I don't know. Naughton, your thoughts.
My thoughts. I know you can't wait for them, Mr. Steve. My esteemed colleague, I always agree with Razor, but I really am agreeing with Mr. Steve here in a lot of aspects. Last 2 games, Ant has said after the game, yeah, they came out, they wanted it more. They came out hungrier. They wanted it. They wanted this game. And well, he's kind of the problem with that early on in the game too. He's, like you said, Mr. Steve, just moping around. That's got to be corrected. And just reiterating what I was saying earlier, there's 13 games left. I am not already thinking about playing games. That's 13 games and a lot can happen. Injuries, whatever. I'm just thinking we just got to beat those teams that we can beat. Like Philadelphia, when they went down to the YMCA, as Mike said, and they got a couple old dads come and play. Why are they even in the gym with us? That is the huge thing. When it comes to the playoffs, I think we're a better team this year. I really do, even without Cat. I know that sounds weird. I mean, I think we're a better team. I'm not worried about playing. I'm not worried about who we're going to play in the playoffs, because I know they're going to turn that on. And whatever Finchie does with the rotation, you got to take care of business against these shit stompers every game. And I don't want to hear it from Ant at the end of the game. They wanted it more than us. Fuck you, Ant. We want more out of you. Michael.
All right. You know what? The more we're talking about it, the more this team reminds me of the team 2 years ago where we had Rudy for his first year. The transition was clunky, much like with Jules this year. The big thing I see with this year, though, where I have a little more faith is, God forbid, Rudy punches slow-mo or somebody of his ilk this year, or Jane punches a wall. I know I did see Na last night punch the top of the canopy as he was leaving. Fortunately, he didn't punch the wall, but if this team, even God forbid, they get like the 8th seed and have to go against OKC, who I'm pretty sure is already clinched the number 1 seed, they really have nothing left to play for in the West. Is if this team can go in healthy, they have a chance against any team ahead of them. And I truly believe that. I think they would have had a great shot to beat the Nuggets 2 years ago if Nas didn't have the broken wrist. Hell, we would have beat the Lakers if Rudy wasn't suspended for punching slow-mo in the last game of the season. Remember, we took them to overtime, and they made a Western Conference Finals run that year. So I think the big thing here is the next 3 weeks, is maintaining health, figuring out what their rotation is going to be for the playoffs. And to your point, Brian, luckily our schedule after the Friday game gets a little tougher. We got the Nuggets, they play
Yeah, thank us.
they
That's
play to the
ridiculous that
level of
you
their
think that.
opposition, and it's so goddamn annoying because they show up great, even in losses against good teams. But oh my gosh, they remind me of the Timberwolves of 2 years ago where they just choked. So against the lesser teams. But anyways, we'll get some final thoughts here. I'm going to try to throw a couple of just unique questions to each of you. Ramon, who's going to be the one over the next couple of weeks that really carries them towards the playoff run? We've talked about a lot of players. Who's the guy you're looking at? Just be like, hey, if we're going to position ourselves a little better in the next couple of weeks, who's the guy that's going to lead us there?
I mean, it's got to be Ant, but I think that goes kind of without saying, right? I'm gonna go with my guy, Dante. I think that, I mean, with his defensive, offensive playmaking ability, he can elevate this team. I've talked about what a big shot maker he is. Unfortunately, he had a couple looks against Indiana that would have iced the game that he missed. But I'm not concerned. I know he's going to keep taking those shots. He's not going to be afraid to take those shots, and he will start hitting those shots. So I believe that he will get back to what he was, not that he hasn't been doing it over the last two games, but where it will help inspire them to some victories. And he will hit those big shots at the end of games, whereas he hasn't, at least didn't against Indiana. Real quick, I just want to say this too. Jaden McDaniels had kind of solved the foul trouble issues throughout the season. Last two games, he had 4 last night and he had 5 against Indiana. He's got to clean that up because it really stifled him against Indiana. And it was kind of a lot of reach in fouls. He didn't look like he was really in his stance.
Yep.
Yeah. And Nas is kind of having that problem too. He's not seemingly into his stance very much. So they get caught reaching in, bumping guys. So, but to answer your question, Dante DiVincenzo, Mr. Steve, or what's your question for Mr. Steve?
I got a question specifically for Mr. Steve. You were a proponent of starting Dante over Bite, starting Jewel or Nas over Jules. Now that everybody's healthy, you kind of see the body of work. What are your thoughts now after a couple weeks with everybody back healthy? As far as and I know the reasons why, but just tell us your take after a couple weeks with everybody back.
I still think it was a better fit for Bite with Dante coming out. And I like it, Dante coming out and starting the game because of his energy and I think against Orlando in the fourth quarter there, because we had a terrible third quarter against Orlando, but the fourth quarter started and DiVincenzo, he was on it with defense. He was hitting shots. He had high energy. Rim protector Dante, right? His energy came out and really helped to turn the tide, and everybody fed off of it in the fourth, and that really made a difference. I think starting Dante makes a lot of sense, and I also think it gives Mike the ability to not have to be playing so many pressure minutes and not get. He's just, he is the age he is. More power to him. I can't run around that, like that, but he's he's getting up there. So I think Dante should start over Mike. I think that with Julius, I would much prefer Nas get in there and get in a good rhythm and a good flow. I think part of the problem is that Nas isn't in a rhythm the last couple of games. Now that Julius has come back, I think Nas is trying to figure out where he fits in. Whereas before he was, it was almost like he was the number 2 option, right? It was almost like he was, 2-3, whatever, 1A, 1B, however you want to do that, because he's over there and he's into a flow, he's into a rhythm, he's able to get shots, he's able to get going, he's more confident because he's not worried about getting a hook from Finch pulling him out for Randall there. So I would prefer that, and then just just play it off. Let them come in, have Randall come in and spell of Rudy, and come in and with his physical presence, and then use him in more conjunction, flip-flopping Rudy and Randall back and forth, depending on who they're matching up against. You got the height and the length with Rudy. You've got the physicality with Randall. From a defensive standpoint, that makes a lot of sense to me. to be able to beat on some of these guys. Or when you're playing, like if we're end up going up against Memphis, now you've got put them both out at the same time. But you start off by running the big boys off the court with your speed, get Nas and Dante out there and a little more energy. So I'd prefer to see that rotation, and then just speed it up, right? 6, 8 minutes, boom, boom, boom. Get these guys going, get them in and out, get TSJ, Julius, Nas, get them moving. And now you can, once you do that, then you can start playing with tempo and you can start mixing and matching depending on how the other team wants to play. They want to put a big lineup in, great. We're going to put out Nas, Julius, and Rudy. They want to be speed, great. We're going to go Nas and TSJ, right? Now you can start playing with that. So Dante and Nas to start, and then look at the pace of the game to try to get the other team tired.
Yeah, I don't know at this juncture of the season if that's something they're going to do. And knowing Finchy, he's very predictable. I don't see it happening. Now, that leads me to Mr. Naughton. As a Finchy
All
apologist.
right. Is this about Glenn Taylor and chicken wings?
No. I don't give a shit. Is Glenn still alive? Is he around?
What kind of bullshit are you going to send me? Let's go.
Okay. As a Finchy apologist and what does Chris Finch have to do to salvage this season? And I'm not talking, obviously his job's not in danger, but I'll be honest, the beat writers who, let's be honest, half of them suck anyways, but the fan base itself has kind of turned on Finch this year. Much to the chagrin of people like yourself and Razor, who are huge Finchy guys.
Hey, leave my esteemed colleague alone. You come at me.
Where at least
Okay.
I will give Mr. Steve credit for calling him out on his rotation all season, but I digress. As a Finchy apologist, Mr. Naughton, what does Finchy have to do to salvage this season? And I'm not talking about win a playoff series or two, but his rotation leaves something to be desired. Some of his decisions, I will give him full credit. At least he knows when to call a timeout now, because his first 3 years here were horrible. What does Finch have to do to salvage the season? Because as a somebody who watches all of their games, I have to question some of his decision making.
All right. That's fair. That is fair. And I see Mr. Steve down there with bated breath. The rotation drives me nuts when we're healthy. It absolutely does. The lack of timeouts. I mean, you say he's been better, but he's been dog shit about it. I mean, like the other teams, like a shit stomper like Portland goes on a 24-5 run and before he calls a timeout. That's absolutely ridiculous. But I am here as a Finchy apologist to tell you, Mr. Steve, tell you, Razor Ramon, and tell you, Michael Eterno, that he gets the big bucks and you don't worry about him. I just want him to beat the crap out of those really bad teams. And I'm all about positivity, as you all know. I'm the positive one. You guys are on the wine line over here. You just let my guy coach, Michael.
Yes. Enjoy the season. All right, gentlemen, it's been real. Appreciate you guys. That wraps it up for this week's edition of Hungry Like the Wolves. Cross your fingers, because this week has been a little rough. So we'll see what the next 3 weeks bring. Obviously, we're in a playoff push. Be interesting to see, but they need to right the ship real quick, because I'm going to tell you what, last weekend we were all sitting pretty positive, and now these last 2 games has got the man cave in a bad position. But appreciate you, gentlemen. I know Naughton already, dropped the mic and exited the building, of course, as he is wont to do. But appreciate you guys. We will see you soon. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Take care.